You're watching the Xiaomi 11T Pro disassembly. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you like, subscribe, and click on the notification bell so you'll be notified the next time I upload a video. And if you need any tools, there are links in the description. First, the SIM tray needs to be removed. Next, we need to apply heat to the back plate using a hairdryer or a heat gun to loosen up the adhesive underneath, and then we're going to use a plastic pry tool to pry the back plate off. Here's a better look at the glass back plate. The glass camera lens cover can be replaced by applying some heat and prying it off. There is some foam padding on the other side. There are 17 Phillips screws which need to be removed. Once the screws are removed, we need to peel off this flex cable over here on top of the plastic piece. Now we can lift up and remove the plastic cover. On this plastic cover, there are some antenna lines, which are these light gray colored lines drawn on top of the plastic. There's also the NFC antenna located here. There's also graphite film which sits over part of the battery, as well as runs underneath the NFC antenna. And the graphite film basically just helps transfer heat. And here's a look at the other side. There are two battery cables on either side of the phone which need to be disconnected. There's also some copper tape over here, which needs to be peeled off. Now we can begin to disconnect the flex cables. There are two coaxial cables on the bottom right corner of the main board, which need to be popped off and disconnected. On this flex cable over here, you have the LED flash, as well as a secondary microphone located below it. Taking a look at the other side, you can see that secondary microphone. There's some more copper tape located on top, which we need to peel off, which is covering the connector for the front-facing camera. Now once that's peeled off, we can disconnect the front-facing camera and remove it. It's time to lift up and remove the main board. On this side of the motherboard, we can see the 108 megapixel wide-angle camera, as well as the 8 megapixel ultra-wide angle and the 5 megapixel telemacro lens. The cables for those can be disconnected by just popping them off. There is another microphone located on the top corner. There's an infrared or IR blaster on the other top corner, and there's some graphene film over copper tape on top of the shields. Once the graphite film and copper tape are peeled back, we can see some thermal paste on top of these chips and over here, as well as some thermal pads on top of these chips. Taking a look at the other side of the board, we have more copper tape over here and over here on top of the shields. There is also another white coaxial cable which runs from one side of the board to the other. Once the copper tape is peeled back, we can see a lot of thermal paste on top of the processor and RAM, as well as a thermal pad over here on top of that chip. Moving on, we're going to remove the bottom speaker assembly. There's some graphite film on top of the speaker assembly housing. Looking at the other side, we can see the large Harman Kardon speaker over here, and next to it is a small antenna board. There's also a liquid damage indicator over here, which is that white sticker. And there's a rubber gasket with mesh filter over the speaker opening. Now we can disconnect this flex cable, which connects the sub board to the main board. There are two more flex cables over here which need to be disconnected. One is the screen cable, and the other one also connects the sub board to the main board. We also need to disconnect the other end of that coaxial cable. Now the subboard can be lifted up and removed. There is a rubber gasket around the charger port itself, and the primary microphone is located underneath this shield. We can see the SIM reader located on the back side. If you needed to replace your screen, you would have to remove the back plate, and then you'd remove the screws on the bottom speaker assembly, and then remove the speaker assembly itself, which would give you access to the screen cable. Then you could disconnect the screen cable, heat up the front of the phone where the screen is, so you can loosen up the adhesive underneath. You'd pry your old screen off, get your new screen, apply new adhesive, and reapply the screen, making sure you run the flex cable through the opening of the midframe, and then you would reassemble the phone. So in order to remove the battery, there are pull tabs provided to help us pry the battery off. Here's a look at the two batteries. These pull tabs aren't the easiest pull tabs to use, but they do get the job done. Once we pull back this adhesive tape, we have access to this flex cable over here underneath. Underneath the battery and this flex cable, there's a copper vapor chamber, and there's some graphite film over here on top of it. Here's a better look at the copper vapor chamber. And it runs underneath over here, underneath the motherboard, where the processor of the phone is. Moving on, there's a haptic feedback motor on the bottom, the flex cable for the fingerprint reader and power buttons located right here, as well as the flex cable over here for the volume keys. And over here there's a rubber gasket covering the opening where the flex cables go for the buttons. So that rubber gasket can be removed by just pulling it out. Once that gasket's removed, you have access to the flex cables over here on the inside if you wanted to remove those or replace those. And there's a metal bracket over here for the power button. That one you could just slide up to remove. The other Harman Kardon speaker is located on top and it's held down with adhesive, and the flex cable for it is over here. And the flex cable for the proximity sensor is located over here. Here's a better look at this speaker. For the repairability score, I give this phone an 8 out of 10. The backplate has some strong adhesive, so it isn't too easy to pry off. The pull tabs for the battery are somewhat flimsy as well, so it's not that easy to pry the battery off. But I do like the fact that you don't have to remove too many components to gain access to the screen cable, so doing screen replacements shouldn't be too difficult. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the phone back together. Once all the screws are back in place, apply new adhesive and reapply your backplate. Flip over the phone, power it on, and you're done. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.